chaos of popular culture makes your brain hurt, you really need relief in the form of a transfusion of analysis and humor. It's time for a Poperation. Join hosts Eric and Stacey as they dissect popular culture one bloody organ at a time. It's just what the doctor ordered.
And hello, you are listening to Poperation. I am Stacey.
And I'm Eric.
And we are talking today about an iconic actress. Or actor. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Actor. Are actresses actors? Should we call them actors? Is it demeaning to call them actresses?
No, I don't think it is. But I usually say actor just because I do.
I call myself an actor because I feel very empowered by that. But at the same time, I'm sitting here telling you that we're going to talk about a female actor. She's an actress. Yeah. I don't know. The only time I think actress works for me is when we're talking about the Oscars because it just helps be clear. Anyway, we're trying something new on the show this year. We're going to devote an entire show to one person and their career, and I hope we do this more because I think there's some interesting material to be mined here if we're talking about someone who's got a nice long career. Yeah, they'd have to have a nice resume. Yeah. They have to have some stuff we can talk about. And who we are talking about today, for sure, it is Julia Roberts, America's sweetheart. And she is. Yes, she is. Here's my thing. I have a relationship.
Stupid.
I have a relationship with Julia Roberts. Not
really?
That I've never met her. But we've never talked. We've never conversed. Here's the deal.
But a relationship nonetheless.
We have a relationship nonetheless. And one of the movies we're going to talk to that was iconic, and I'll tell you about my relationship with her when we get to there. But she's done a lot, and I will tell you the very first time I saw her was in Mystic Pizza.
The very first time I saw her was in that movie about the rock band with
Damn it!
Justine
I was going to bring that up. Yes, I was going to bring that up. Satisfaction.
Yes.
With who else was in there?
Liam
Neeson.
And she had an affair with Liam Neeson in the movie. They were so hot together, and I had no idea who either one of them were.
I know, but I saw that after Mystic Pizza, and I don't think I saw that before.
Yeah.
But I was going to mention Satisfaction because it was an awful, absolutely terrible movie.
I haven't seen it since I saw it the first time, and I remember liking it the first time.
I saw it in the freaking theater, and
really?
I'm embarrassed. There are a lot of movies that I see in the theater that I saw in the theater.
But
now
if you
that
look
I'm
back and you see that
about
poster, right? Justine Bateman was the star.
She was
of that
over
movie
the title.
She was the star.
Julia Roberts was, and Julia Roberts.
Yeah, I mean, way down. She was not a name at the. But you look at the poster, and your eyes go right to Julia because she's got that big Julia Roberts smile
and big hair
and big 80s hair, big 80s hair.
But yes, no.
But that's where your eye immediately goes to. It's like, Justine who? Yeah. I mean, it's pretty obvious right then and there who was going to be the big star.
So here's the thing. So she was in Satisfaction. Mystic Pizza, though, was actually a good movie.
That was a good movie. Lily Taylor was really good in that movie. And Annabeth Gish,
who is the granddaughter of the famous Gishes.
Lillian Gish.
Lillian Dorothy Gish. Oh.
Which one's she the granddaughter of?
I don't know.
I want to say Lillian.
Yeah, I don't know.
I want to say Lillian.
But they're from the silent movies back in the 1920s, just an FYI, the Gishes were. But anyway.
Unless you want to check out The Whales of August, where Lillian played against Betty Davis when they were both really old.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was later on. But I'm just saying when they were in their heyday.
True.
Okay, so Mystic Pizza. After she became a star, and of course we all know what she became, what knocked her over. But anyway, there was Sleeping with the Enemy, which I also saw in the theater.
Me too.
Didn't like it because
scary.
It was scary, but I felt cliched even then. Your ex-husband. I mean, I don't.
Followed by your very favorite film, Dying Young.
Guess who didn't see it? And you know why? Why? Why would I not?
Dying
Young. What the hell? Seriously.
All I remember of that movie is Campbell Scott vomiting and Julia Roberts crying.
And he was young and dying.
Yes, he was both young and dying. Hence,
didn't
Dying
see it.
Young.
Nope, wasn't going to see it.
Hook, where she played a really different kind of Tinkerbell.
She was the worst wig ever. It was awful.
Not a great wig.
It was awful. I don't know that she enjoyed that. She was basically, because it was, she was Tinkerbell, she was playing in a sound studio by herself.
Yeah,
and I don't know if
anyone ever came to read with her. I wonder if they did or not.
I don't know. So she was,
but also kind of like a butch kind of Tinkerbell. I mean, not
It was
not
the wig.
butch, but dressed like a Lost Boy more than. I mean, she was not in a cute little green mini dress with fairy wings. She was not the Disney version of Tinkerbell at all.
And I think that was Spielberg's choice. I think that's what he wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. And she wouldn't have been. She's not a Marilyn Monroe anyway. It's just that wouldn't have been good for her. She's very much a girl next door kind of.
And I think that's probably who. I mean, I kind of get that because of who Tinkerbell was to Peter Pan and where they were and that sort of thing. Yeah. He needed a buddy. The Pelican Brief,
where she met her dear friend Denzel Washington. I didn't hate that. I think it was maybe panned by the critics or whatever, but I didn't hate it. It was good. Brief. It was a good movie. It's interesting that I believe in the book, Denzel's character was not supposed to be black, but they cast Denzel because he was hot, and then they wrote the romance out of the movie.
Oh, I didn't know that part. That's a shame.
So, hearkening back to a conversation we had recently about Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
Right.
Again, like
choices are made.
Too much in the early 90s for Julia Roberts and Denzel to kiss.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. 20th century was weird. My Best Friend's Wedding, which
she was the bad guy.
She
in that movie. She was kind of the villain. She was the lead, but she was the horrible girl who was trying to break up.
Right. And you know they had a different ending to it, but because the ending was... I forget where the ending was.
Did she succeed?
No, she didn't succeed, but the audience hated her. Hated her. So they added a scene where Rupert Everett comes and asks her to dance.
Yes.
That was added like months later after they had done the preview audiences, the test audiences. And when he comes and he's there and he says, let's dance, and they dance, that helped the audience not hate her so much. The audience never understood why she was so mean to the girl, to his, her best friend's fiance. And even when she apologized, they didn't believe her. But at the end, when Rupert shows up at the reception, that helped.
I'm glad that it tested badly and they added that scene as opposed to having it all work, because that would have pissed me off. It ended the way it needed to in terms of she did not succeed.
Who got the guy?
Yes,
that is how it needed to end. Stepmom.
Cry fest. Oh my God! This is what we could have talked about. This remember last month when we talked about movies that made us cry. Yeah. This one put me out. Yeah. But really, Susan Sarandon's movie, much more so than Julia Roberts. But it had a chance. Julia and Susan got to be in a movie together. Notting Hill. With Hugh Grant.
Loved. I can, if that comes on, that's one that if it just comes on the television and I don't have anything else I have to do, or I'm just folding laundry, whatever, I'm watching it. And it doesn't matter where it starts.
It's a great movie.
Watching it.
Although it's interesting, in that movie, she plays a world-famous movie star.
She does.
And for whatever reason, I don't believe her. Even though she was the most famous movie star because she's Julia Roberts, she's so relatable. She just doesn't seem like Charlize Theron seems like a movie star. Julia Roberts doesn't. Even though she's huge, it's just she's so girl next door. She's so relatable. I just, for whatever reason,
that's interesting.
Don't look at her as a big famous movie star.
Wow.
Even though she
But if she walked in the room right now, you would totally think she's
I would fangirl all over her. But yeah, it's interesting. But when I watched that, I was like, I don't know about the casting for this. Although once the love story starts, who cares? It's
the writing in that is brilliant.
Runaway Bride brought her back together with Richard Gere after they were so famous together in a movie that we'll talk about in a moment. Yeah, not as good.
No, it wasn't as good. I felt it was done
Ocean's 11,
in his sleep,
in which she played the girl. But a very charming girl with a lot of really charming men.
Oh, yeah, no.
Mona Lisa Smile, which was her inspiring teacher who changed these girls' lives.
I didn't hate it as much as a lot of people did, but I didn't love it like some people did. Yeah. I was very middle of the road. It's fine. She did a good job.
Yeah. And Kirsten Dunst is Kirsten Dunst.
Well, they had a lot of good actresses in there.
Yeah. Maggie Gyllenhaal. Wasn't Maggie in that?
Oh, everybody and their dog was in that. Yeah.
Closer. Interesting movie. Real departure for her.
I didn't see that.
British play, and they really wanted her, so they made her character American, but it all takes place in London, and it's very British and dark. Eat, Pray, Love.
I saw it.
In which Julia Roberts goes to countries that start with the letter I.
It was weird. I found it to be... You know what? I liked Under the Tuscan Sun better, which I felt was kind of the same thing.
A little.
But Diane Lane was in Under the Tuscan Sun, and I liked that movie. And for these kind of, I need to find myself in my 40s things, white girl things. I felt like Eat, Pray, Love was meh.
Yeah,
I didn't believe. There's one I didn't necessarily believe her in that one. I was and her, and
it's based on a memoir, which is interesting.
They're both. Because, both of those. I don't even know what old coming of age. I don't even know what you call them. Are books, but it's like meh.
Yeah. But true story, my point. We're almost done with the laundry list. Mirror, Mirror, in which she really does play the bad, really bad.
And I think she did that just so she could be the villain, because she's never the villain. And it was just...
and it wasn't a big hit because no one wanted to see Julia Roberts be mean.
It was also not that good. It was not just that.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, okay. It was not just that, but yeah.
Money Monster gave her a chance to work with George Clooney again. Apparently, they're really good friends, too.
Yeah, all those people are. All those people in Ocean's 11 are all good friends.
And then a movie that's upcoming, Wonder.
What's that about?
It's about a bullied child, and she's the mom.
Oh, okay. So I have seen previews for that.
Movie. It looks great. I mean, it looks really, from what you can tell, it looks like it's very well done. The preview looks good anyway, so go check out the preview. So Julia Roberts, interesting. When I was in college, it was really popular to hate Julia Roberts. Everyone, and I was in a theater program, so we were all very stuck up about who our favorites were. I was the only one who ever stuck up for Julia Roberts. And what they always said about her was she plays the same person. She always plays herself. And here's what I would say to my friends. I'd say, you know what? If you took a stack of all the screenplays, and this was like in the early 90s I was saying this, and she hadn't done much then. Her resume is a lot longer now. If you took all the screenplays that Julia Roberts had ever performed in, movies were made from, and you just highlighted all the characters that she played, you would walk away from that reading, if you'd never seen a Julia Roberts movie, thinking this is the most versatile actor who'd ever lived.
Right.
Because her characters were very different. She just found a way to bring herself into them.
And I think that's what the legend actors and actresses do. That you can look at a movie and go, that's a Jimmy Stewart movie. Or that's, and I think that's, so I don't think it's a bad thing. Betty Davis. I think that Marilyn Monroe. I mean, that's what I think.
Katharine Hepburn.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a bad thing that she can do that.
Yes, but pretentious young actors in the theater department that I went to school with all thought it was a terrible thing. They thought you should disappear into all of your roles and you shouldn't even know it's them. And I stuck up for Julia even then, and I still like her a lot today. So we're going to talk about 5 of Julia Roberts' best. Most of these, we're going to go through all of her Oscar nominations and the film that she won an Oscar for. And then I snuck one in that she was panned for, but I still kind of like it. And I watched it recently again, and I stand by the fact that I like her in it. But we're going to start with a movie that you have a very particular connection to, which is Steel Magnolias.
Where my relationship with Julia Roberts comes in. I auditioned for Steel Magnolias.
The play.
In 2000. No, not 2000. I'm sorry. 1992. Okay. I did not audition for the role of Shelby, but I got the role of Shelby.
What role did you want?
Truvy is what I auditioned for.
Okay.
And I sucked like a mamma jamma. After my audition, I sat down and went, okay, I'm not in this. And that was that. And then I watched the next 50 women audition for Shelby. Okay. Because this movie was maybe 1 or 2 years old at that. What was
it was not 89.
Yeah.
I think.
So it was 2 years old. The movie was. Everybody wanted to play Julia Roberts' part. I didn't, because it was Julia Roberts. And so when I got cast, it means I don't look like Julia Roberts. I'm not a star like Julia Roberts. I don't look like Julia Roberts. And I don't look like Julia Roberts.
Got it.
It was a very psychologically challenging role for me, because all I could picture.
So you auditioned for Truvy, and then the cast list came up, and they said, and Shelby is Stacey Fairhighly.
Yes. And I was everybody was stunned. I got so many dirty looks. Looking back on it, it's kind of fun, because I'm like, I was the dark horse and you guys hate me, but it's all good now. But what I will tell you, it was very difficult because I had seen the movie and it was in my head. She was in my head, what she had done, how she had done it, and trying to be different from that and still make it real was very challenging. Okay. And the fact that I wasn't Julia, did I tell you, I'm not like Julia Roberts.
Got it.
Especially don't look like her.
Got it.
But that was iconic. And that was why 100 women came out to audition, and like 20 or so were called back. But I mean, that is what, because Julia Roberts was in it, and she did a good job. She did a good job. I don't think she did a great job.
She was fine. She's the one that got nominated.
Which is
the lone
wrong.
Oscar nomination out of that, which I thought was weird
on so many levels.
Because
she should not have been
full
nominated.
of great performances. I mean, if I were to take Best Supporting Actress from that movie, of course, I look at acting differently than a lot of people do because I've done a little bit myself. To me, Olympia Dukakis was the finest example of supporting
Olympia
acting.
Dukakis for sure should have been nominated.
Yeah.
For sure. Maybe even Shirley MacLaine.
Who is just hilarious, but Olympia Dukakis was really the glue that kept that whole movie together. But this is not a show about her. So Julia in this movie was the young girl with the tragic ending, and Robert Harling wrote the play, which then became a movie based on the fact that his sister died, and it was really an homage to his sister and his mom, who carried on bravely and gave her a kidney before she died.
Right. She had diabetes,
and really stuck by her side and was really just grief stricken. And it was the penultimate, the scene that kind of, is the big tearjerker is when Sally Field is having a really hard time grappling with the fact that her daughter is gone.
Yeah, spoiler. Shelby dies.
Yeah, people know that, right?
They do now.
They should.
I mean, it's a movie that you should see because there is some really, really funny lines in there. Or if it's not, I mean, I think the movie is something you should see because there's some really good performances by the supporting actors.
Yeah.
Julia does fine, but the play is also good too. But if you want the lines.
And I've said before on this show, I've seen this movie probably 20 times, not because it's a tearjerker, but because it's so funny.
Oh, it's very funny lines.
Just these Southern ladies and the back and forth. And you have
some really
and the timing.
iconic women in there saying these lines really, really well.
And probably the best thing I've ever seen Daryl Hannah do.
I'm going to go with you on that.
Maybe Kill Bill. Because Kill Bill was such a surprise that she was that badass.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and the fact that Annelle could be that badass in something else was kind of amazing. But Julia did. I mean, she had to be.
She was a straight man, frankly.
Yes,
that character was a straight man.
She only has a couple of funny lines, only because Robert Harling can't quite help himself, but give everyone some snarky. Because she wasn't that snarky in a movie about that contained a lot of snark. But she was kind of this, America's sweetheart, piece in there, so that we could cry later with Sally Field.
Yes, we had to love her. We had to love her.
We didn't cry with Julia Roberts. We cried with Sally Field.
Correct.
It wasn't Terms of Endearment where Julia Roberts got this great deathbed scene.
No.
She just basically just kind of went away, and then we were left with the heartbreak with the five who were left.
Correct.
Yeah. The next film that's on our list to talk about was her big breakout moment. And she was also nominated for an Oscar for this one, which surprises me to this day.
Very strange. Very strange.
Pretty Woman.
I don't understand why she was nominated. Who else
was with a Heart of
Gold. Was there nobody around in a movie that year?
Talk about changing the ending, though. This was a big time change the ending, because this story was originally written that Hooker falls in love with rich client, rich client falls in love back. They have this moment of fantasy, but then they realize it's not going to work out, and all of that was left in. And in the end of Pretty Woman, the way that we know it,
he comes back and
she rescues him right back, right? And he gives her a diamond ring. They're going to get married, and everything's going to be fine. Okay, whatever. In the original, which I believe was called 30,000, because that was what she was worth for the weekend.
Right. Okay.
She goes off and gets depressed and shoots up and dies of an overdose. That's the end of the movie. Wait,
that was a Gary Marshall ending?
No, before he came along. That was the original screenplay. The way that the movie was written.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, it really, and it was a statement about, greed. Prostitution. And yeah, I mean, it was just, but it is not the movie we know today. And I'm
not a good career choice, girls.
But I also know, yeah, exactly. Don't grow up to be like Julia in this movie. Don't emulate her too much.
And yet everybody's dressing like her now. What? Stacey made a commentary. Sorry.
Okay. But it's interesting that the one scene that I always think of when I think of Pretty Woman was when Richard Gere shows her a necklace that he wants her to wear, and it's beautiful, and she's kind of taken by it, and she's got this gloved hand, and she reaches over to touch it, and he just goes boom and snaps the lid shut, and she just explodes with that Julia Roberts laugh. That was an improvised moment.
Gary said, you got to do something.
Yeah.
And so Richard's like, what do I do? He's like, I don't know. Do something.
Do something to make it
to surprise
real
her.
And have a real moment there. And it was a real moment, because that's Julia.
It's the iconic moment. That's what people remember, that in the escargot flying across the restaurant.
Oh.
Remember that when she's learning, she goes to the dinner with him and she doesn't know how to eat escargot.
The other one that I remember too is when she goes back to the store and talks to the snooty salespeople and says, I just spent $30,000 elsewhere else.
That was good.
Big mistake.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hooker with a Heart of Gold movie, and
so here, okay, let me say this.
Fashioned as a romantic comedy, weird,
right? But it's very odd. Here's what I'm going to say about these two, and we're sitting here both going, "Why was she nominated?" Probably because of that thing that you were talking about in Satisfaction, the movie poster. She has a presence.
She has star quality,
and she is likable. She is charming on the screen, and I think that sometimes that will go over whatever the role is. That may take over.
And I haven't seen Pretty Woman since it came out because, quite honestly, the concept kind of offends me a little bit.
Oh, yeah. No, I've seen it since then, and it's completely unbelievable. But it's Gary Marshall, and that's kind of where I put Gary Marshall movies in a little...
But maybe members of the Academy just looked at that and said, who could have made this movie work? This is an impossible script to try to make this Hooker someone that you're actually rooting for, and you want this man to marry. Who could do that? And here comes this girl, and she got pretty close.
Or it was a bunch of teenage girls that were given the ballots. And they thought it was
all the
awesome.
old school said, I don't know who to nominate this year, honey.
Give it to
I
my
have a 15-year-old granddaughter. She'll fill it out for me.
She'll fill it out. Fill out that form for me. I loved it. So
anyway, Julia did not win an Oscar for either of these films. When we come back, we will talk about the movie that finally won her an Oscar and two others that I think are worth mentioning when we return.
Coming up, more about America's sweetheart Julia Roberts, including an in-depth discussion about the movie that brought her Oscar Gold. Stacey and Eric will be right back.
And we are back, Pop-Operation, with Stacey and Eric, and we're talking about Julia Roberts.
America's sweetheart.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I think that actually she should make that like a law, that when you say her name, you have to say
America's sweetheart, followed right. Yeah,
I think
that
so.
should be
That's
just part of her.
She was in a movie called America's Sweetheart. We didn't mention that with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
What?
Yes, Catherine Zeta-Jones was, quote, America's Sweetheart, and John Cusack. It was an awful movie, which is why it's not on our list. We forgot about it because we wanted to because it was a nightmare, but that just occurred to me.
Well, the movie that we are going to talk about next is one that was nowhere near an Oscar nomination for this one, wasn't even a part of the conversation, and part of the reason why people didn't like it was because I did.
You did.
I liked it. Was because she was trying to be Ireland's sweetheart. She played an Irish girl in this movie. And it's not the one with Liam Neeson where he was what was that one? Where he was the Irish freedom fighter and she was kind of the girl.
Oh my gosh, yes.
She was in that one too. Anyway, this was a movie with John Malkovich and Glenn Close working together. They had just made Dangerous Liaisons together, and so they came back for the same director, Stephen Frears, made this one, but put Julia Roberts in the lead. And this was a little movie called Mary Riley. And Mary Riley is a retelling of the Jekyll and Hyde story from the point of view of a young chambermaid who works in the house. And John Malkovich plays both Jekyll and Hyde.
As he should.
In this. Well, I don't know. One of the things I remember thinking about this movie is anyone who goes to see Mary Riley should know what Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is about. And it's about this good doctor who takes a potion. He's doing experiments and he does them on himself. And when he takes a certain kind of potion/poison thing, he turns into this evil man who kills people.
Correct.
And that's Mr. Edward Hyde. And they are the same person. But I read the book, actually. I was so into this movie, I actually read the book that it was based on, called Mary Riley. And in the book, if you didn't know the Jekyll and Hyde story, you'd have no idea. So Mary Riley's this chambermaid. She works for Dr. Jekyll. He says, I've hired an assistant. His name is Mr. Hyde. If you see him wandering around the house, be good to him. He works here. He's a good man. And she went, okay. And then 2 nights later, she's walking through and Dr. Jekyll is asleep, or so she thinks. And here comes Mr. Hyde, who looks nothing like Dr. Jekyll. Okay. And so for her, they really are two different people.
Sure.
And what's interesting about it is that she kind of has a crush on Dr. Jekyll, but she has the hots for Mr. Hyde.
Sure.
And that's
Which
makes
sense. I mean, if you know the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, that does totally make sense.
Yeah. So universally panned, this movie.
Would you like me to tell you one reason I think that it was panned?
Why?
She wore no makeup.
No.
Her eyebrows were crap in it.
And the other reason, so I remember seeing a thing in Entertainment Weekly where it had a list of how many times Julia Roberts smiles in her movies and correlated with how much money the movie made. And there is a direct correlation. And she never flashes the big toothy Julia Roberts smile. And she's miserable.
It's an awful job.
And her father dies halfway through and it breaks her heart. And
you know what the chambermaid does?
Oh, it empties the chamber pots. Yeah. And as well as all the other crap work that she also serves
literally crap work.
She also serves him breakfast, and she also has to clean the baseboards.
Hopefully she's washed her hands somewhere in there.
One would hope.
It's totally different. People didn't want to see her
depressed.
in that. Nobody wants to see her in that.
She's depressed and she's sad the whole way through.
And she's poor, and she doesn't. Yes. I mean, there's just
and it really is the book as well as the movie is kind of an expose of what a servant's life was like. Because the interesting thing about the original telling of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is that the servants weren't even characters. They were there, but they were just in the background. They didn't have lives. They didn't have
they weren't the story.
No one paid attention to them. And so telling this story from a different point of view was very interesting from a class perspective. Yes. But it was also an interesting window into the characters because you saw how one person who knew them both well might see them. Now, when you're watching it, and obviously John Malkovich is playing both roles, it's like, honey, that's John Malkovich. Although he had short hair as Dr. Jekyll and long hair as Mr. Hyde, and a scruffy beard as Dr. Jekyll and clean shaven as Mr. Hyde. So you could look at them and say...
Here's my thing about John Malkovich, though. I will say this, because I saw him in and I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole too far, but I'm going to say this about him as an actor. I saw Dangerous Liaison with he and Glenn Close. And I will say that there's not in a movie anywhere that I've seen him in where I went, he is so hot, except Dangerous Liaison, where that mamma jamma, ask me when, where, I don't care. I will do you now. Because
if you were Uma Thurman, you would have lifted your skirt too.
Amazingly sexy in that. And that's attributed to his acting because he ain't pretty.
No, the writing was better in Dangerous Liaisons because he's not all that. He's really just mean in Mary Riley. He's very cruel to her, and yet she's drawn to him. And she's drawn to him because she's in love with the kind, lovely doctor who's the only employer she ever had who knows her name and treats her well.
But I think this also goes, so this is when she was still in her late 20s. Was she late 20s around this? And during all of this, that's what people didn't want to see her doing that. It's kind of like when Michael J. Fox tried to do dramatic stuff when he was in the middle of his 20s and he wanted to, I don't want to just be the Back to the Future guy. So he starts doing this drama. People didn't want to see that. Correct. Yeah. Nobody wants to see that. No, we don't want to see you depressed and not getting we don't want to see that. Yeah. We don't want to see Julia Roberts depressed and not having a happy ending and all of that.
So I think the story of Julia Roberts is that she's both an actor and a movie star.
But
people want to see her as a movie star. But she wanted to try some acting.
Right, but she needed to wait until she got older. When she got older, but I'm serious. When she got older, when she actually, her Oscar win, she's moving out of that ingenue. And thus people are like, okay, we can see you do this. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. That's fine. We'll do this. And appreciate it. And now she can do anything she wants except the ingenue parts.
True. She's past that now.
But I mean, I think that to me is where people weren't ready for her to do that yet because she was still our pretty American
They also
sweetheart.
knocked her accent. An Irish accent's difficult to do. But what's interesting to me is that John Malkovich never even attempts an accent. He's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from Chicago.
I know.
While she's doing her best at an Irish lilt, which was a suggested Irish lilt. It's actually pretty consistent the whole way. I thought. It didn't bother me, but it bothered a lot of people because they wanted her to be, Julia Roberts from the middle of the Midwest. And then Glenn Close, oh my God, she's barely in the movie, but she chews the scenery like you've never seen.
Glenn's really good.
She's good, but her lips are crazy. Her makeup is nuts. She's the owner of this a brothel that Mr. Hyde goes to kill a bunch of hookers one night.
That's on the director, man.
Yeah, and it's just, but she's great in her very scenery-chewing kind of way. Julia Roberts did win an Oscar, finally.
She did, and she did deserve it.
For a film which she plays the title role in Erin Brockovich. Yeah.
I liked it.
Great movie.
I liked it.
Yeah. I saw it when it came out, and I saw it right afterwards. I haven't seen it for a while. I might want to watch it again.
Yeah. No, I think there were a lot of good things about that movie. And I think this was when, as I was just talking about, she's a little older. Mm-hmm. She's able to play someone who has kids.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, okay. All right, this is fine. I can see, I'm fine with her not having the perfect happy ending if that happens, with having these broken relationships, with single mom. I will accept that, and I think that audience was at that place that I can accept her because, again, the audience that was loving her when she was in her 20s, a lot of them were in their 20s. Mm-hmm. They were getting older. Audience is getting older too. And they're like, oh, yeah, so she's now, I can see, I'm experiencing what she's experiencing, and I can relate to her. And so I think that once Erin Brockovich came, because also it established her as an actress she was now awarded. Now people, those who said, no, she's just a pretty face, da-da-da-da-da. No, she's up there and she's beating other actresses for an Oscar. Again, we've talked about awards and how they can be quite political, but at the same time,
in a lot of ways. But
correct. Yeah. At the same time, it does give you a little bit
street cred
on that. So I think that was the beginning to where then it opened doors and she could do all sorts of things after that.
The two moments from Erin Brockovich that I still remember, she has a great monologue where Aaron Eckhart asks for her number. And she says, you want some numbers? I'll give you some numbers. 2, that's the number of kids I have. Da-da-da. And she goes through her failed mortgages and her failed marriages, and she has this big, long monologue. It's so great.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I got numbers coming out of my ears. For instance, 10.
10?
Yeah. That's how many months old my baby girl is.
You got a little girl?
Yeah. Yeah, sexy, huh? How about this for number 6? That's how old my other daughter is. 8 is the age of my son. 2 is how many times I've been married and divorced. 16 is the number of dollars I have in my bank account. 850-3943. That's my phone number. And with all the numbers I gave you, I'm guessing 0 is the number of times you're going to call it.
And the other one that I remember is she was really, underestimated.
Yeah.
She was really underestimated by a lot of the people doing the kind of work that she got into. And by the way, Erin Brockovich is kind of in that vein of Norma Rae. A woman finds a cause and, grows into herself and becomes the woman she was always meant to be. And she's doing all this work and she's compiled all this data. And somebody makes a reference to the fact that, the only way she's going to get people to talk to her is if she gives them a blowjob first.
I just went up there and performed sexual favors. 634 blowjobs in 5 days. I'm really quite tired.
I'm really quite tired, actually. And it's this, it's this kind of flippant off the cuff. And Albert Finney plays her boss, who was so great in this movie. Yeah.
Well, everybody, Eckhart was amazing. I didn't realize what a chameleon he was.
Yeah.
And because I didn't recognize him in some movie, I saw him afterwards and went, oh, holy crap, that's the same guy.
Yeah.
He's very, very good. No, I thought that she was wonderful. And that all of your assistants, your supporting actors were great as well. It was a very well done movie and a really good choice for her.
Yes,
really
but
good choice.
It is Erin Brockovich. I mean, the title is just like, this is her movie. It is her vehicle from beginning to end.
And she still hadn't learned how to dress. Erin Brockovich.
Yeah.
I mean, even now in real life with all that money and everything, girl, take some tips from the actress. Julia knows how to dress. You need to learn. So, but you can.
Yeah. Final note on that is I remember a big controversy because when Julia did win the Oscar, finally, she neglected to thank the real life Erin Brockovich, and everyone gave her all kinds of crap for it. And it was like, you know what? This is her moment. Like, she's over the moon. She's, she's been nominated twice for this thing.
I mean, how many times does Erin Brockovich need to have her name said? I mean, it's in the title of the movie.
They say it all the time. And for the rest of the life, who's the woman with the EP? Erin Brockovich. And why do we know that?
That's right.
Julia Roberts.
That's
so thank you, Julia.
Yeah.
Whatever. Say whatever you want when you win an Oscar. When we come back, the last movie that Julia was nominated for an Oscar did not win, but I really love it. You haven't seen it.
Nope.
But we're going to talk about that when we return.
Coming up after the break, Eric and Stacey talk about the latest movie where Julia flexes her drama muscles alongside Oscar royalty. Also, our final diagnosis on Julia Roberts' America's Sweetheart. Hashtag America Sweetheart. Eric and Stacey will be right back.
And we are back. This is Popperation. I'm Eric.
I'm Stacey. And we're talking about America's Sweetheart, and that could only be one person.
Julia Roberts.
That's right. America's Sweetheart. As I said earlier, that you have to say America's Sweetheart after you say your name.
Okay, so do it.
Julia Roberts.
America's Sweetheart.
There we go.
That's the way it should sound.
It should always be. So I have seen almost all of her movies. Not all of them, I'll be honest. I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen almost all of them because I am a fan. I like Julia. I like what she does. When she was in her ingenue phase, I went to see most of them, even Sleeping with the Enemy, which I didn't care for. Mm-hmm. But I went to go see them because she has that charm. Yeah. And she is likable on screen. And I feel like I'm probably going to enjoy the movie when she's in it. Mm-hmm. And, but as I said, I haven't seen everything, and I haven't even seen all of her Oscar-nominated movies. And the one is her most recent Oscar nom, right?
Is a movie. I love how we keep our audience in suspense by talking about things.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Naming
it's
what
absolutely
it is, but I'm going to do it a little bit more because this is a movie that my friend Sydney and I have seen 12 times.
Shut up.
We watch it all the time. And sometimes I'll go over to his house.
And I'm going to have a question for you.
And we'll have a glass of wine, and he'll just say, Eric, can we watch it again? And I know what he's talking about. He's like, can we watch August Osage County again?
So why?
And I always say yes.
Why?
Because we think it is one of the funniest movies ever made. And this is the litmus. This is what August Osage County is. Your test, it's like a BuzzFeed Quizlet, right? Do you have a fucked up family or not? If you do, you will watch August Osage County and think that it is hilarious. If you don't, you will watch August Osage County and say, that was the most depressing movie I've ever seen in my entire life. So Sydney and I have, I love my parents. They did a great job. I'm a gay man raised in a Catholic home. Okay, there was some waspy stuff going on, and I learned how to deal with my family's. Well, my family's style of conflict was sweep it all under the rug and see if it's still there 6 months later. Mm-hmm. And Sydney was a young gay kid who was raised in a Pentecostal home.
That's even more.
Yeah, lots of sweeping things under the rug and just kind of, and so that's the style of, and we think that this movie is a riot. So funny. And people who come from, lovely families that just, don't have any of those kinds of underbelly issues going on, they think this movie is just, so here's the setup. Dad has disappeared. Dad is played for a hot minute in this movie by Sam Shepard. Great actor.
Love him.
But he's gone after like the first 5 minutes of the movie. He's disappeared. Mom is freaking out. So there's one daughter. There's three daughters. Meryl Streep plays mom.
Gotcha.
And Margot Martindale plays mom's sister. And she's wonderful. If you watch The Americans, you'll know who she is.
Okay.
The Hollers.
Yes,
movie,
I know.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about.
And they have,
she is very good.
And mom and dad, Sam Shepard and Meryl Streep, have three daughters that are all played by someone with the riffing on Julie somehow. Julia Roberts, Julianne Nicholson, and Juliette Lewis play the three daughters.
Wow.
So the three Julies play the three daughters, and they are very wildly different from one another. Mm-hmm. Julianne Nicholson is the daughter that stayed close to home. Okay. And Julia Roberts and Juliette Lewis are the daughters who went away, but are now coming back home. So it's a big family reunion. Let's take care of mom because dad's disappeared. And when they get home, they very quickly discover that mom's back on the pills. Mom is a drug addict. Okay. And is back on the meds. Julia
sounds hysterical so far, Eric. Yeah, keep going.
Julia is the angriest Julia Roberts you've ever seen in your entire life. Her marriage is falling apart. Her husband has actually recently moved out because he's some kind of professor and he's shacking up with a younger student.
I think we put a pin into why I haven't seen this yet.
And she is pissed off. But her pissed off rants are hilarious. And this was a very successful play before it was a film.
Right.
And if you read the play, they haven't changed any of Julia's dialogue. But just as I was talking about before, when you watch the movie, you think it's written for Julia Roberts because you imagine that when she's pissed off, she sounds just like this. She really puts herself into it, but she is so mad at the world. She's mad at her husband. She's mad at herself for getting older. She's mad at her mom for being on drugs again. She's mad at her dad for going away, and she just explodes all over the place. But if you come from a history of repression, you find it all so satisfying to watch.
Okay.
And even when Meryl Streep is high off of her gourd, just says outrageous things that can, if you have a certain sense of humor, make you laugh. And so there's lots of family truths being finally revealed around the dinner table, things like that going on. And it's just, I mean, we find it hilarious. And other people have said to us, how can you watch that movie more than once? It's so depressing. And we don't find it depressing at all. It's just immensely satisfying to watch, especially when, Julia Roberts literally tackles Meryl Streep to the ground and screams in her ear, "I'm in charge now," and then orders everyone to round up all the pills from all over the house and take them away. And Meryl Streep's just crying in the corner. You're taking my pills away. Shut up. I mean, it's just so great.
So it sounds like she's actually taken on one of those supporting roles, kind of characters that was in Steel Magnolias. That when she was younger, she couldn't really pull it off.
Oh no!
And
no.
I think that again,
older Julia role.
Yeah, but
interestingly, so she was nominated for supporting actress. Meryl Streep was nominated for best actress in a leading role for this, and yet it's Julia's story much more so. Meryl Streep kind of plays Nightmare Mom from Hell. Does it really well, has a lot of layers, but it's Julia who actually has more of the character growth. Because at first she comes back home to take care of Mom. And really, if I were to describe her journey without trying to give anything away, because I don't want to give spoilers for this movie, because I would like people to go see it. It's her, dealing with the fact, how much do I owe this woman who gave me life when she's not giving me anything in return? And that's kind of her question.
Right.
And so she's the one who's dealing with something throughout this whole thing. And so many people in her life have let her down. But it works because it's Julia. Because you watch the movie and it's like, how can anybody let you, it's Julia Roberts. How can people be so horrible to her?
And I think that is why she can take these risks and do these roles that, normally we just throw at Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
This is,
But if it were an actress who exuded less warmth, if she were someone who you already saw as kind of brittle, if this were Jodie Foster, you would not enjoy this movie nearly as much because Jodie's got an edge.
Jodie is intense.
Yeah.
And she goes down that intense. She's a totally different
If it were Jennifer Jason Leigh, you would not, then I would say, I don't want to watch this movie more than once. Yeah. I think it's because, well, first of all, Sydney and I love and adore Meryl, who is the other kind of actress who does, at least in the earlier part of her career,
she was a chameleon.
Different accent every single movie.
Correct. And
you almost didn't recognize her film
I don't think she is now. Now I feel like I mean the roles she does, and I'm not saying she doesn't do them well. I just feel like they're usually very much like another role she's done before.
Yeah, although she can do Devil Wears Prada next to August Osage County and completely different women.
Exactly, and again, it's not that she doesn't do them well. It's but
we're starting to see her technique a little bit more, just because her resume is so
correct. She keeps working,
long.
So you keep getting to see it.
She can't have too many.
But I think that when she was an ingenue, there was always a coldness about her.
Yeah.
Julia always had a warmth.
Yes.
So I think that one thing that I do like about Meryl, just an asterisk, is I do think she's gained more warmth as the years have gone by, whereas Julia always had it. And so it's, And
I would just simply say we discovered Meryl's sense of humor a little bit later. She made all these really deep dramas.
That's true too.
I mean, Sophie's Choices. And but finally, when she did Postcards from the Edge, we're like, oh my God, she can be funny and she can be
right. But and again, this would be on the Meryl Streep show, is talk about how her technique changed there on that, because I think anyway, Julia Roberts has always been warm.
Yeah,
and even in Satisfaction, which was a god awful movie, even in Mystic Pizza, which was an ensemble piece and was supposed to be about the three of them. The fact that and she was not necessarily, the story wasn't necessarily told from her point of view.
No, that was more Annabeth
Gish is her sister, the person who played her sister in the movies. So the fact that she, pulled ahead, that is who she is.
Yeah.
I mean, because Lily Taylor,
Lily Taylor.
Yeah, she's an amazing actress.
Oh, absolutely.
But she couldn't compete with the warmth that Julia Roberts puts out there on screen. And I think that's what made the hooker with a heart of gold and Pretty Woman stand out. I think that warmth is what she's sitting here saying from, I haven't seen this movie, but I'm now kind of interested in it because I want to see her say these things. And then at the end of the day, me still go, I really like her.
Yeah. Yeah. And the movie actually, and I won't spoil the ending.
Okay.
It ends differently than the play does.
Okay.
So her character makes a choice without any words. They didn't add any dialogue, but there's just a visual that tells you that this movie is ending differently than the play did. But yeah, the final word on August Osage County is that it great cast, huge, sprawling cast.
Yes, I remember.
Chris Cooper. Yeah. Benedict Cumberbatch, Dermot Mulroney.
Who's not good in it? Nobody.
Everyone is amazing in this movie. Ewan McGregor plays her husband.
Holy crap!
So good. Oh, the young girl from Little Miss Sunshine, Abigail Breslin, plays her young daughter, who's fucked up, but great performance. And the whole cast is so good. I will say, August Osage County works because Julia Roberts is in this role, and you can hang on to her because it's Julia Roberts.
Right.
And even if you've never seen her do anything before, she has this way, even though she's just pissed off in this movie, you're with her. You're just as pissed off as she is. And and the people who she's mad at, they kind of deserve. I mean, Ewan McGregor has an extraordinary amount of charisma, but you're just disappointed in him in this movie. It's like, dude,
because she's
do better.
Disappointed.
Do better. And she's betrayed. She's sad in a way, but what comes out is anger. Yeah. Which is different for Julia, but it really works.
Well, and I think that's what makes a legend.
Yeah.
That's why everyone will remember her name, Julia Roberts, America's Sweetheart, forever and ever.
Yeah.
Amen.
And at one point, Meryl said something to her, and her line is, "That is wildly unfair." And that's the way it's written in the script, and it was a line before she ever took it. And when she says it, it's not even a line of dialogue. It's just like Julia just reacting to, and it's so Julia Roberts, and that's what she does. But like you said, I think that's what legends do. So final diagnosis on Julia Roberts, America's Sweetheart,
and she's going to be that forever. I think she's this generation's iconic, actress. Meryl Streep, a little ahead of her, but you look at her warmth. Is if she's still able, she'll make movies forever and ever because we like seeing her. The audience likes seeing her on screen doing what she wants to do. Again, she's made a couple of missteps. There's no perfect movie, a perfect movie resume for anybody. But I think that there is something about her that is not learned. It is just innate.
Yep.
And she has it, and I think we're lucky to have her. I think she is America's Sweetheart, and I'm saying that with all sincerity. Okay, well, there may be a little bit of
a little snark there.
Snark. Yeah, I do love her. I do love her. I don't see everything she does because I don't. But I do think she is great. I really do.
And I guess I go back to what I said about Notting Hill is that she doesn't, the reason I love her so much, she doesn't seem like a movie star. She is. Mm-hmm. She is a movie star.
She is a person I could go have a drink with.
That's what I was about to say. Yes. If I met Julia Roberts, I would spend 5 minutes fangirling all over her. And then I would say, can we hang out?
Exactly.
I just want to hang out with her.
I would love that. How fun would a cocktail party be with her?
Exactly. If I had to pick, it would be Emma Thompson and Julia Roberts would be the two that I just want to hang out with.
That's a good two.
If I could be their token gay best friend, I would totally sign up for that.
She's already got Rupert Everett, sorry.
Was that just in the movie?
It wasn't. Really? It was at one point. It was. It may not be now. I don't know. We haven't talked lately.
I can replace him. He's surly.
He's British also. He may be living across the pond. Well, so you're closer.
That's true. And she married a guy from Arizona? So she's stateside now.
Yeah. She's stateside.
Call me Julia. We'll hang out. I can do your nails. Okay. Until next week, this is Popperation. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm Eric.
I'm Stacey.
Leave us a review on iTunes, and we'll see you next time.
Yay!
You've been listening to Popperation with Eric and Stacey. Check out our website at popperationroom.com for links to our blog and other extras. Don't forget to subscribe to Popperation via iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, YouTube, and other podcast locations. You can also follow @Popperation Room on Facebook and Twitter. Music provided by purpleplanet.com.